The scorching midday sun beat down relentlessly as Zara walked along the dusty road, her small feet kicking up clouds of dry dirt with each cautious step. She clutched the worn bag her mother had handed her, the weight of it nothing compared to the weight on her heart. Her fingers tightened around the strap as she tried to steady her racing thoughts. She was leaving everything she had ever known, her home, the familiar streets of her village, her friends, the scent of the soil after rain. And for what? To marry a man she had never met, in a house she had never set foot in, replacing a sister she adored and feared would never forgive her absence. Her mother had been quiet that morning, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears, a small tremor in her hands as she adjusted the folds of Zara's shawl. "Your sister was meant to go," she whispered, her voice breaking, "but she cannot. It is you now, Zara. Go with courage, go knowing that God is watching over you." Courage. The word felt heavy, almost mocking, as if courage alone could shield her from the unknown, from the judgmental glances, from the cold reception she feared awaited her. The carriage ride had been a blur of endless fields and distant mountains, the world outside a mixture of green and gold, stretching on forever. Each passing moment felt like a countdown to a life she had not chosen. She pressed her face against the window, hoping to catch some comfort in the scenery, but even the wind brushing her cheeks brought no solace. When the grand gates of the mansion finally swung open, Zara's stomach knotted with fear. The house was enormous, almost intimidating, with high white pillars that gleamed in the sun and doors heavy enough to signal the weight of the family within. She felt like a small bird about to be swallowed by a storm. And perhaps, in a way, that is exactly what it was, a storm she could not flee, a life she had no choice but to enter. As the carriage slowed and the doors opened, her eyes met those of a child peeking cautiously from behind the thick curtains of a doorway. The little girl's eyes were wide and curious, filled with a mixture of apprehension and curiosity. For the first time since her mother's quiet goodbye, Zara felt a spark of something unfamiliar, hope. "Who are you?" the child asked, her voice steady and honest, unburdened by the weight of judgment that adults so often carried. I'm Zara," she murmured, unsure if her voice would even be enough to cross the vast gulf of distance between their worlds. The child tilted her head and smiled, a small, knowing smile that seemed to pierce through the walls of fear and uncertainty around Zara's heart. "You came from my papa. He's been waiting for someone to come. Maybe God sent you," she said simply, a faith so pure that it made Zara's chest ache. Zara froze, stunned by the innocence and certainty in the girl's words. That one simple sentence seemed to carry a weight of destiny far beyond anything she could comprehend. The little girl's eyes held no doubt, no hesitation, only acceptance and trust. For the first time in days, Zara allowed herself to breathe, and a tentative smile touched her lips. Perhaps this place would not be as hostile as she had feared. Perhaps she could belong here, not through expectation, but through connection. Inside, the house was a maze of grand corridors and silent rooms. Every corner seemed to echo with quiet judgment, every shadow whispered of the lives and expectations within. And then there was Rihan, the man she was meant to marry. He stood at the far end of the room, tall and silent, observing her with eyes that seemed to measure her worth with meticulous care. His gaze was not unkind, but it carried the weight of suspicion, the kind that makes a newcomer feel the weight of every misstep before it has been committed. The first days were a delicate dance of silence and observation. Zara moved carefully through the household, learning its rhythms, its unspoken rules, and the subtleties of its hierarchy. She discovered which rooms were off limits, which tasks were considered trivial, and which interactions required careful politeness. Every glance from Rihan was a riddle she could not yet solve, every word from the servants a test she feared failing. But the little girl, Amina, became her anchor in this strange, new world. She was fearless in her curiosity, asking questions, offering companionship, and providing reassurance that no one else could. "God sent you after all," she would whisper, sometimes holding Zara's hand, sometimes simply smiling in that way only a child could, a small reminder that she belonged here, even if no one else yet saw it. Zara began to find ways to make herself useful, not in grand or spectacular ways, but through small, meaningful acts. She helped prepare meals, learning the household's tastes and preferences. She tended to the garden, coaxing life from soil that seemed reluctant to yield its bounty. She learned to anticipate the needs of those around her, slowly building a bridge of understanding where suspicion had once reigned. Each smile she received, each nod of quiet acknowledgement, was a victory, a sign that perhaps, in time, she could belong. Rihan remained distant, yet Zara noticed the subtle shifts in his behavior. He watched her with a mixture of curiosity and caution, slowly allowing glimpses of warmth to surface. One evening, as the sun dipped low and filled the room with golden light, Amina ran to him with uncontainable joy. "See," she exclaimed, tugging at his sleeve. "God sent her." For the first time, Rihan's gaze softened, a small smile playing at the edges of his lips. He looked at Zara, really looked at her, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Zara felt her heart lift, a flicker of hope and possibility igniting in the shadow of her fear. At night, lying in the unfamiliar room that had begun to feel slightly like home, Zara whispered a quiet prayer. "God, if you truly sent me here, give me strength. Give me courage, let me find a way to belong, to be loved, to make a place for myself in this life I never asked for." Her voice trembled, but in that trembling was determination, a vow to face whatever challenges awaited her. And though she did not know it yet, that prayer was not empty. It was the beginning of a journey that would test her resilience, challenge her fears, and ultimately lead her to a family she had never imagined she could have, to love that would blossom in the most unexpected of ways, and to a life that, against all odds, was meant to be. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, the household that had once seemed cold and unwelcoming began to change for Zara. The initial tension, the unspoken judgment, and the heavy air of expectation gave way, little by little, to familiarity, understanding, and warmth. Every day brought new challenges, but also small victories. She learned the rhythm of the house, the quiet routines, the unspoken rules, and the subtle gestures that spoke louder than words. Each step forward was hard-earned, but every act of care, every smile from Amina, made the effort worthwhile. Amina, with her bright eyes and unshakable faith, remained Zara's constant source of encouragement. The little girl's laughter echoed through the halls, a sound that began to warm Zara's heart even on the hardest days. "Mama," Amina said one morning, tugging gently at Zara's sleeve as she kneaded dough in the kitchen, "do you think Papa likes you yet?" Zara paused, watching the earnest curiosity in the child's face, and allowed herself a small, shy smile. "I hope so," she replied, "but even if he doesn't yet, we'll make him see." Amina clapped her hands, delighted at the idea, and ran off to play, leaving Zara with a rare moment of quiet reflection. Rihan remained reserved, often distant, yet Zara began to notice subtle changes in his behavior. He would linger a moment longer when she entered the room, ask questions about her day, or offer quiet praise for a meal well prepared. Each small acknowledgement felt monumental, proof that the walls of suspicion and distance were slowly crumbling. It was not love yet, at least, not in the way she understood, but it was a start, a foundation upon which something beautiful could grow. The turning point came on a rainy afternoon. Zara had been tidying the library when she heard a sharp cry from the courtyard. She rushed outside to find Amina had fallen while trying to retrieve her small wooden boat from the puddles. Her little arms scraped and bleeding, her tears soaking her hair, Amina looked terrified. Without hesitation, Zara scooped her up into her arms, whispering soothing words, her heart pounding as she tried to comfort the child. Rihan arrived moments later, his expression taut with concern, and for the first time, Zara felt the weight of his gaze not as judgment, but as something gentler, more human. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice carrying an unfamiliar softness. "You were there when she needed you." Zara, still cradling Amina, nodded, her throat tight with emotion. That single acknowledgement, simple and understated, held more weight than any grand gesture could. It was a recognition of her presence, her care, and her worth. From that day onward, the dynamic in the house began to shift. Rihan started to engage more, to share moments of laughter, and to include Zara in conversations she had once been afraid to join. There were evenings when he would sit by the fire, allowing Amina to rest her head on his shoulder while Zara prepared tea, and she would watch him with quiet amazement at the man he was revealing himself to be, strong yet tender, reserved yet capable of warmth. Zara's own confidence grew alongside the shifting atmosphere. She took on responsibilities in the house with a sense of pride and purpose, not from obligation but from genuine care. She repaired torn linens, tended the garden with love, and found joy in simple acts of kindness. Each success, each small moment of connection, strengthened the bonds between her and the family she had never imagined belonging to. But it was not without challenges. The household had its skeptics, relatives who questioned her presence, and servants who whispered doubts about her intentions. There were days when Zara felt unseen, dismissed, and misunderstood, and nights when loneliness pressed against her chest like a heavy stone. Yet each time, Amina's small voice reminded her, God sent you after all. The words became a shield against despair, a mantra that grounded her and gave her the courage to persevere. One evening, a particularly tense confrontation with a visiting relative threatened to undo weeks of progress. The relative questioned Zara's ability to manage the household, her origins, and even her worth as a wife. Zara felt a hot flush of anger and humiliation rise within her, and for the first time, she wanted to flee. But Amina, sensing her distress, placed a tiny hand on hers and whispered, Mama, God sent you. You belong here. Don't let them make you feel small. Taking a deep breath, Zara faced the relative with calm determination. She spoke honestly, respectfully, yet firmly, articulating her love for the household, her care for Amina, and her commitment to Rihan. Her words were not loud, but they carried sincerity, strength, and a quiet authority that could not be ignored. Slowly, the relative's expression softened, and the tension dissipated. Zara felt a surge of triumph, not for herself, but for the child, the home, and the family she had begun to build. Rihan, who had observed quietly, approached her later that night. You handled that well, he said, his voice low but sincere. I see now, I see the woman who came into this house not just to fill a role, but to make a difference. The sincerity in his words touched Zara deeply, and for the first time, she felt the stirrings of something more profound than respect, something that could grow into love. The bond between Zara and Amina deepened further in the months that followed. They shared secret games in the garden, whispered stories late into the evening, and built a trust that was unshakable. Amina's unwavering faith in Zara's place in their lives gave Zara courage she did not know she possessed. Every time the little girl's arms wrapped around her and she whispered, God sent you after all, Zara felt a surge of warmth and belonging, a reminder that she was exactly where she was meant to be. And then there were quiet moments between Zara and Rihan, moments that spoke louder than words. The way he watched her laugh with Amina, the way he sought her opinion on matters of the house, the subtle gestures, a hand on the back, a shared smile, a moment of silence that felt like understanding, taught Zara that love could grow slowly, tenderly, and steadily. She realized that what had begun as a forced arrangement was transforming into something she had never dared hope for, a partnership, a friendship, and a potential love that was rooted in trust, respect, and shared care. One evening, as the sun set in streaks of gold and crimson across the sky, Zara sat with Rihan and Amina in the garden. Amina leaned against her father, giggling at a story Zara was telling, while Rihan listened with a quiet smile. He reached out, taking Zara's hand in his. I was wrong, he admitted softly. I doubted everything, but now I see. God did send you, not instead of anyone, but because this is how it was meant to be. Tears welled up in Zara's eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that she had found her place, her purpose, and a family she could love and trust. She had entered the household as a substitute, uncertain and afraid, and had emerged as someone cherished, respected, and needed. She had faced fear, rejection, and uncertainty, and had emerged stronger, kinder, and braver. The journey had been far from easy, but it had been real, meaningful, and transformative. The house that once seemed so intimidating now echoed with laughter, love, and belonging. Rihan and Zara had discovered the quiet beauty of partnership, and Amina had found a mother who loved her unconditionally. Together, they had created a home where warmth, trust, and hope could flourish, a testament to resilience, faith, and the power of destiny. And every time Amina whispered her favorite words, God sent you after all, Zara felt the truth in them reverberate through her heart. Life had taken an unexpected turn, but in that twist of fate, she had discovered her greatest blessings, family, love, and a sense of belonging that was more precious than anything she had ever imagined.